YouTube, I'm back with another Genshin Impact video, and today, with Natlan coming out in, like, I don't know, like 2 weeks or something like that, I wanted to go over the top 5 characters I think everyone should be pulling for. I truly believe these are must-pull characters and fit pretty much almost any team composition possible. They're universally known for being probably the best characters in the meta, and they're just fun. So we're going to go over these. Now, obviously, you should play the game how you want to play, right? But if you want to know who you should really look to not skip and prioritize, and especially if you want to, you know, reach the end game as fast as possible and get into the meta, although really there's not much end game to begin with, I'm here to show you the best characters. So let's get right into it. The first character we're going to go over is Monsieur Neuvillette. Neuvillette is easily not only the best Hydro DPS in the game, but is tied for either being the best Hydro DPS in the game or the second best DPS in the game, period. He is absolutely broken in every way possible, and truthfully, he is pretty brain dead. All you have to do to actually use Neuvillette in combat is very simple. His skill is going to summon these droplets, and his burst will summon these little droplets on the floor. All you do is hold your charge attack. You could actually let it go a little bit early, and then you would be able to pretty much just blast. Like, it's actually kind of crazy. So here, I'll show you right now. No way, I'm stuck.
I'm dying. Help me.
Skill. You have 3 droplets on the floor. You need 3 to suck up. Instant charge. Dude works with literally anyone. He is the main source of DPS. He also has his best in slot artifact set is something called Marachase, which is going to give him pretty much 36 free crit rate due to the fact that he drains his own HP and he also heals himself. So the whole gimmick about this artifact set is due to the fact that every time you drain your HP or give yourself more HP, you get extra crit rate. And so with him, he's just goated, and his charge attacks are his main base of the damage. So you need to use a charge attack to suck up that water droplet. Therefore, your charge attack is getting 50% increase as well. I have a whole guide on how to build him and whatnot, and how to play him, and pretty much breaking down everything on the channel that goes super in-depth on him. Quick TLDRs, he doesn't need a lot of crit rate. He really mainly needs crit damage. You see, actually, I'm at 74 crit rate right now after I've activated my skill. If I were to leave combat right now and just despawn real quick, it's going to drop down to 38%. You'll see in a moment. Now, if I go back to my details, it drops back down to 38%. So it's a massive buff. And realistically, it helps alleviate the fact of having to worry about building a million things at once. So he also has very great free-to-play option weapons, and his teams are pretty simple. Again, obviously, his best in slot teams are going to require other 5 stars, which we'll cover in a little bit. But he universally could work with anything. He could work with Vaporize reactions. He could work with Dendro. He can work with Freeze. I mean, he literally can do everything. So this is a character that you will not lose. If you roll Neuvillette, Monsieur Neuvillette, and you're 100% free to play, and you just started the game, even from a free-to-play perspective, you still have a solid team. It will not be his best in slot team, but you will start off. You can throw on the Dendro Traveler. You then will get Shang Lang for free, who is a goated 4-star. I don't recommend rolling for 4 stars themselves, but one of the best characters in the game. And you could also throw on another Dendro character in Cole. And with this team, you'll be getting the Dendro Elemental Res buff over here, which says Elemental Mastery increased by 50 after triggering Burn and Quicken or Bloom reactions. All nearby party members gain 30 Elemental Mastery. After triggering Aggravate, Spread, Hyper Bloom, or Bursion reactions, all nearby gain 20 Elemental Mastery. Pretty much, you are going to, off the rip, have a very decent team. Now, this is not his best team by any of the stretch of the imagination, but it is still very doable and usable. And again, he is just super strong and super easy to build. There really is little to no restrictions when using this homie. The only thing is, he doesn't stop talking. This homie yaps for days. Go buy the Yap merch. It's linked in the description. This dude just be yapping. So that's the only downfall to him. The next character that is, in my opinion, a must-pull is going to be Furina. Now, Furina is actually one of Neuvillette's best in-slot teammates, so they go hand-in-hand together. Furina is the best off-field sub DPS in the game we have, period. What happens with Furina is when you use her skill, she summons these 3 little homies, these 3 little goofy goobers, and they just go on the floor and they start viciously attacking anything around. I don't have to do anything. I just gotta summon them and they'll keep going. So here, I'm gonna show you real quick. So I'm pulling up to this Pyro Regivon right now, and if I use my F right here, bam, they're just gonna start attacking. I don't have to do anything. but the instances and how often they attack is actually pretty crazy. And then now if I wanted to combine this with Neuvillette, I am now, obviously my Neuvillette's going to melt them, but I'm doing even more damage, hydro damage specifically due to the fact that I'm attacking with my on-field main DPS. I also have these little cute creatures going around absolutely mauling and beating the shit out of everything on field. The also great thing about this is it's infinite, there's no downtime. The skill cooldown is 20 seconds, but they last 30 seconds. So you will literally never have downtime with her. Now, her burst is also really great due to the fact that it just massively buffs everyone in the team. If you run her with a universal healer, and that can heal everyone in one shot, which I have a guide out on her as well that breaks down her team comps and whatnot, you get even more buffs. She's really simple, and the great thing about her as well is there is a very good free-to-play weapon for her. Now, it requires you to fish. Hate fishing, but it's still there and it's still very solid. And her artifact set is actually in the same domain as Neuvillette. Increased skill damage, elemental skill damage, and then after that she increases elemental skill damage again. And when the on-field elemental skill damage, and when not on the field, elemental skill damage will be increased further by 25%. This effect will be clear 2 seconds after taking the field. So she is essentially summoning these little homies. She's getting an ungodly amount of damage just based off of the first 2 parts of the artifact set. But then when you're not on field with her, which you're really not supposed to be unless you're doing the burst or summoning them again, you are now going to be buffing your skill damage even more. So pretty much she has no downtime whatsoever, and she actually changes the meta 100%. She might be the most important character, or at least the second most important character in the game. So as I've said, she is a sub DPS. She is not going to be a main DPS when you roll her C6, but she pairs perfectly with this Mara Chussie set, because the thing about her little summons is they drain HP as well. So if you're not running Neuvillette, and let's say you are running a different DPS, you could use whoever. I'm just going to throw some really hot man in the party named Risley,
job for me?
right? God, you're
Sure thing.
have my babies. So when you summon these puppets, they're going to drain the HP when you are in combat. And by draining the HP in combat, you are now getting that passive from this Mara Chussie set over here, where it says HP increases or decreases crit rate will be increased by 12%. So you are essentially getting free crit rate, free 36% crit rate with your character by running her with any main DPS. So don't scoff at the fact that she's not a main DPS, because realistically, she's going to buff your main DPS in so many ways, not only just from the fact that her skill is amazing and her actual kit is great, but she enables you to run the Mara Chussie Hunter set on a lot of characters. And this is overall one of the best artifact sets in the game. So please, 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 if you see Furina on a rerun, grab her up, brother. Free-to-play weapon, fits in any team comp possible, fits with pretty much every single reaction, including Geo, depending on what Geo characters you're using. And you have like a gang of dolphins that are going out there just beating the shit out of the enemies, right? It's a win-win situation. You can't lose going for her.
I once considered keeping.
Shut up. The next character that I'm going to cover is another main DPS, is Arlecchino. Arlecchino is the only other character that might be able to potentially match Neuvillette's DPS output at the moment. Arlecchino is a main pyro DPS who is genuinely just top tier. She's easy to play, she's easy to build, and realistically, there really isn't much downsides to Arlecchino as well. The only downside with Arlecchino is that you can't heal yourself unless you're using your burst. So what do I mean by this? So if I go into combat right now, I'm going to go somewhere. If I use my skill, just to give you a quick breakdown, I mark an enemy, right? And so, well, I pretty much killed one enemy already. So now I have this little red dot here called the Bond of Life. When I consume my heavy attack, that now is going to give me enhanced normal attacks while I'm on field, and every normal attack that I use against an enemy, it's going to bring down that Bond of Life, so I'll actually fight a real enemy and show you. So if you see right now, I'm going to attack this enemy with my Bond of Life, and each attack brings the Bond of Life down more. So the lower your Bond of Life, the less damage you're going to be doing. You said the damage numbers significantly go down. So if I now do my ultimate, I refill my health a certain amount, and I get my skill back for free. So I'm going to use my skill. You now have 5 seconds to wait until it turns, and you can do a setup for whatever your team comp is looking like. This is not a real team comp, by the way. Well, it's not bad, but now you see that it actually changes a little bit here. You want to then use your charge attack, and then you do even more damage, But the problem is, you cannot heal yourself from any other character other than your burst. So sometimes you will be in combat and you will just get absolutely clapped. So she is great in her high risk, high reward. You have massive, massive, massive damage output that you can do with her. But again, you have to be careful with your health management and your burst management, because if you're not running other pyro characters to kind of funnel particles into her burst to get a constant healing, it is pretty dangerous. But with that being said, the other great thing about her is how flexible she is. There are other pyro DPSs in the game, but they are really only tied to one element, which is they're really only tied to one reaction most of the time, which is vapes, which is pretty much going to be Arlecchino or any type of pyro character with hydro. But the great thing about Arlecchino is she can work in Dendro teams with this new character that came out, Emily, for burning reactions. She could work well with Electro. She extremely works well with Hydro, but she actually also works perfectly with just Pyro. And there's something called a mono Pyro team where you run Pyro characters, you run 2 extra Pyro characters, and then 1 character that can swirl this Pyro element and enhances Pyro damage even more. So she is not only the best Pyro DPS, but she's the most universal Pyro DPS. And again, I have a whole video out on her, go more in depth on her kit. And now this perfectly ties into the next character, which is Kazuha. Kazuha is another one of those characters that is super simple to build and also just genuinely a top tier support and has multiple functions in the game. He buffs damage. He does grouping. A cutie patootie. He just go to with the sauce. And he's very easy to build. And another character, again, cracked artifact set. So let's break this down. The thing with Kazuha is he synergizes perfectly with Hydro, Pyro, Cryo, and Electro, which is pretty much the main elements. Now, even though Dendro and Geo are not on this list, he is still valuable in those teams because of his grouping capabilities, which we'll get to after. But breaking down his buffs first, what happens is when you use his swirl, whether it's his skill or his burst, he is going to, it says right here, contact with Hydro, Pyro, Cryo, or Electro, it would deal additional elemental damage of that type. So for example, if I'm running a mono Pyro team with, 3 other Pyro characters, I want to throw Pyro before I start unloading with my DPS. That way I am front loading as much damage as possible with my DPS. And then another thing again, with his artifact set, as I said, his anima bonus goes up by 15%, but it says increases squirrel damage by 60%, decreases opponents' elemental resistance to the element infused in the swirl by 40%. So not only in his talents is he giving you a buff, but the artifact set is increasing the swirl damage by 60% and getting their elemental res down by 40%. So you're pretty much just stacking tons and tons and tons of buffs. A lot of the times, if you're really having a problem with boss fight or anything, find an animo unit that you have on your account, throw VV, which is the artifact set on them, swirl it, and start using that element and go to town, and it'll be great. Kazuha is also really great for exploration. For example, if I want to climb up on this rock, I can do this. I can do my charge, and then bam, to let go, do that, and I kind of get a little bit of another boost. So that's another little just cute thing that you could do with him. But in terms of grouping, why is this so good? Well, I will show you right now. So if I go into, let's say, the endgame content right now, the Spiral Abyss, a lot of the times the enemies are spread out all throughout the map, and it's really annoying. It's just annoying. And so what is a great way to group up all the enemies, as well as on top of grouping them up but getting extra damage? Use Kazuha. So right off rip right here, if I were to, I use my Arlecchino, and now I want to bring them in a little bit closer, it tightens the circle, and then there's 3 or more enemies, so I could just go off rip and bam. And then obviously I just do my damage. Sidebar, my Arlecchino is not very leveled at all, and we just body them quickly. So again, I use my Arlecchino here. Do that. I swirl the Pyro, and now I should be waiting. We swirl Pyro here, and then bam. You just do enhanced damage. And again, you could do that with tons of elements. So he's not just locked to those elements that are in his talents. He's good for grouping. He's just good for overall damage. There really is no downsides. Focus on elemental mastery with him, and he has tons and tons of weapon choices. You could use Iron Sting. You could use Xiphos for the EM. You could use Sack if you really wanted to. I mean, there's tons of ways. You could use Fab. He's really not hard to build. You just got to get lucky and get a bunch of VM rolls. But he's really go-to with the sauce. I'm not going to lie to you. So some honorable mentions that I want to go through real quick and bang them out. One would be Navia. Navia actually recently just got a rerun, and she is the Geo element type as well. Now, Navia, a lot of people don't like Geo, including myself. Not a big fan of Geo, but Navia is pretty self-sustaining in the fact that she doesn't need, unlike the other Geo elements, she really doesn't need other Geo units to be good. She simply just needs other elements to create crystallized reactions. So normally in a perfect scenario, you would run Navia with another Geo character like Zhongli, Albedo, Ningguang, whoever it may be. And then let's say I wanted to run Bennett and Shanglang. And now I am going to have a not only shielder, but someone who helps assist create crystallize for her, and a very, very high attack scaling DPS who can literally be used in almost any situation possible. And she also has a Gumbrella. I mean, like, she's literally Taylor Swift and she pulls out a Glock. I'm just saying. It's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of crazy. And something that I actually learned recently is you could get away with not having Zhongli on the team. So, for example, you could actually, I'm making up something. Let's put Furina here instead. You could burst with her first and then start attacking to create enough crystallized reactions. It's not as comfortable with running a double Geo unit, but it's still not bad. So I'm going to show you real quick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to burst with Navia first. That allows her elemental burst to go down and start creating reactions. And then I'm going to just use everyone else first. And now I have a pretty much full stack. And when you now have infused Geo attacks to assist with getting more crystal shards. So it's still very solid. It's not as comfortable. If you're doing that, you're going to have to run a little bit more ER. But she's still a great unit that I won't say is 100% a must pull. But don't sleep on her. I really think we should shine a light on her due to the fact that she is a very great Geo unit, and Geo gets overlooked easily. And then the second character that I'm not going to say is a must pill because honestly their value has gone down a little bit in the meta, actually quite a bit, but they're still very solid for a lot of reasons, is going to be Raiden. Raiden Shogun's value, although is not as was it used to be peak before, she is still very solid and she's actually very good for multiple things. So at C0, it can still do damage with a national team. So with something like a Dincho / Yelan, Bennett, and Kazuha or Shanglang, whatever you want to throw in there, you know, different variations. She's still good at that C0, but really her C2 is what makes her shine to be actually great in that team composition because her C2 gives her pretty much 60% opponent defense shred. But at C0, what I think she is really great for, and unfortunately 4 stars are very hard to come by in this game, is for Hyper Bloom. When you are running Raiden for really any type of reaction regarding Dendro anyways, all you need is elemental mastery. So I can throw on literally any artifact that is going to give me EM and max it out as high as possible. That way we could just get her to do reaction. And so, you know, she's easier to use than Miko. Not everyone has Kuki Shinobu. And all you simply need to do is hit her F key. So if I go back into the Abyss, I will show you right now. So you simply apply Dendro, right? So I'm going to apply Dendro. I'm going to use my Nahida. We're just going to do this really quickly. Bam. And then I apply this. And so now all I have to do is on field now with Nahida. And every attack that I do is not only going to have the coordinated attacks from the Hydro characters, but I have Raiden's up. And then again, you just redo it, reapply Dendro, whatever case you have to do. And it's pretty much 1, 2, 3, very simple. And that's not with the EM build. She just done so. Hyper Bloom is just broken in itself. But she's very simple to use and enables genuinely the best reaction in the game. So am I going to tell you that this is a must pull? No. But she's up there, and again, at C0, she's very good, very easy to build for EM. Now, number 5, what you're going to know, is Nahida. Nahida is very interesting because technically she is your main DPS in most situations, where Dendro is just broken. I'm going to pull up a screenshot real quick. This is a screenshot from games8.com. There are tons of reactions with Dendro. If you want to pause this and kind of go over them, pretty much almost all of these are viable. I mean, they're all really viable, but the ones that really stand out the most are Hyper Bloom, Aggravate. Spread is very great as well. Burning and Version are kind of even though Emily came out, she's kind of still. But Hyper Bloom is the main one that I'm focusing on right now. Hyper Bloom is just stupid. It's Dendro, Hydro, Dendro Core with Electro. So you create the Dendro Core, you apply the Electro, and then bam. So Nahida has the best Dendro application in the game. As you saw, all you have to simply do is just hold down the you know, and then she applies Dendro there. And the great thing about Nahida is when you activate her burst, some sort of buff to the team with a Hydro Electro Pyro. And also, her talents are just broken. The elemental mastery of the active character within the field will be increased 25% of the elemental mastery of the party member within the highest EM. This is when you are in the burst. You can gain a maximum of 250 elemental mastery this way. And when EM's EM beyond 200 will grant 0.1% bonus damage and 0.03 crit rate to try Karma Purification from all schemes to know. A maximum of 80% damage bonus and 24% crit rate can be granted. Pretty much, she is stupid broken. I mean, there's no other way to put it. You focus EM and you use her best in slot Deepwood, which is another one of these goated artifact sets. Dendro damage bonus plus 15, and then after elemental skills or bursts hit opponents, the target's Dendro res will be decreased by 30% for 8 seconds. This effect can be triggered even if the equipping character is not on field. This allows you to do the rotations with anything. Now, for Hyperbloom, particularly 95% of the time, you really want you on field with Nahida to create more cores. If you're running Zincho Yalan with Nahida, you know, you are doing that. The little bouncing on the keyboard, that way you create the cores, and that's going on. And then you only swap off to your Electro every time that their pretty much sub DPS role is down. But so she is technically the main DPS in the situation, but you could pair her with someone like a Furina and Neuvillette and Raiden, and though she can just be there simply just to apply Dendro, you do your Raiden skill, you do your Furina skill, and then you just pump with Neuvillette. I will show you real quick, a quick sample. So right here, if I go Furina, I'm going to do this burst. Now I'm inside the burst. We all get those specific upgrades. And then, so again, normally you would be on field with Nahida. In this case, we're on fielding with him. And it just does damage. This is also, again, not an EM Raiden, so we could be doing even more. Now I would have to reapply my Dendro here. Now I still have 4 seconds before I got to do that. That's not what I meant to do, but it's okay. We have the skill up still. Bam. I'm paranoid. I'll reapply. He's dead. Okay. Already dead. Now, reapply. Bam. Furina has 10 seconds. And so you just melt everything. The Hyper Bloom is not going off as much as it would if you were going to be on fielding with Nahida. But the damage is still there just because you're using pretty much 3 of the most 4 broken units in the game in one shot. So therefore, it's just cracked. And again, you could use it for Quicken, you could use it for Burge and whatever the other things, but she really excels in this Hyperbloom team comp. She's busted. She's busted. This is, again, another one of those must-pull characters if you care about meta and trying to just clear the content as quickly as possible. There's no downsides to Nahida, and especially to those 5 main characters that I mentioned. You know, if you feel like I've missed someone out, let me know. I'm not going to list off every great DPS or great sub DPS. I'm specifically doing this for the ones that I think you should not skip. If you see those 5 characters, maybe the other 2 if you really want to, and you're feeling a little, you know, whalish with your money, roll for them. But those 5, I think, are going to be the best priority, not only for free-to-play players, but just an overall meta-wise, and also even going forward into Natlan. I can't see them nerfing these characters. So that being said, let me know what you think. Mwah. I love you. I'll see you in the next one.